Andre stood in front of Burnley and Son's funeral home, clutching an old, worn-out suitcase. He brought no flowers, had no one by his side, and of course his name wasn't on the guest list. The suitcase was faux leather, corners scuffed, lock rusted, handle faded, and if anyone looked closely enough they'd see. It was empty, no documents, no clothes, no belongings inside, just an empty box. But for Andre, it was the only thing heavy enough to carry today. The air outside was cold, not the kind that cuts the skin, but the kind that sinks into your palms. Raindrops from earlier still clung to the door handle. He inhaled once, then stepped in. Behind the reception glass, a woman looked up. She frowned. A child in an oversized coat, messy hair, mismatched shoes, and a pair of eyes that knew no fear, but had nothing left to lose. "Who are you here for?" she asked, with no need for a smile. Andre set the suitcase down. Met her eyes. "I'm here to see Mr. Ellis." She glanced at the list. "What's your name?" "Andre? A relative?" "No." "A classmate of his son?" "Number. He used to be my teacher." "Mr. Ellis had many students. You're not on the list." Andre nodded, then pulled the suitcase a little closer to him. "I don't plan to stay long. I just wanted to leave this." The woman eyed the suitcase. She didn't ask what was inside. Maybe she assumed there was nothing, just like Andre's presence here. "You should wait outside." A tall man in a black suit walked over. His voice was cold. "The service is underway. This isn't a place for jokes." "I'm not joking." "How old are you?" 11. "And you think you have the right to be here, just because he was once your teacher?" Andre didn't answer. He simply reached into his coat and pulled out a small notebook. The leather cover was frayed, and the pencil scribbles inside were uneven. He showed the man a page. "Friday. Mr. Ellis added extra bread to the lunchbox, cut in half, one for me, one, I guess, for himself." The man didn't read further. He returned the notebook. "Funerals aren't for personal business." Andre nodded. No protest. He walked to the last row, sat down. No one stopped him, but no one invited him either. The suitcase lay quietly at Mr. Ellis's feet, not something anyone expected, but also something no one could remove. It didn't disturb the ceremony, didn't cause discomfort outright, and yet it made people uneasy. As if some truth had taken a seat in the back row, silent, uninvited, and unwilling to be ignored. Andre stepped back, then sat down again. His eyes never left the now slightly opened casket. The funeral went on. A minister spoke. An old friend shared how Mr. Ellis had once saved a boy from drowning in college. A former colleague read a farewell poem. No one mentioned Andre. No one said anything about gloves, about lunch boxes, or that winter afternoon when Mr. Ellis left a staff meeting just to walk a boy 3 blocks home because he didn't like riding with strangers. Not because they didn't care, but because they simply didn't know. That night, Andre didn't go home right away. He walked the streets until the streetlights blinked on without anyone noticing. His worn-out shoes made soft sounds on the sidewalk, like footsteps trying not to leave a trace. He reached the old library. It had been closed since the pandemic, but the stone bench where he used to sit remained. Where he once read old textbooks Mr. Ellis had accidentally left behind after each lesson. Andre pulled out his notebook from his coat. He turned to the first blank page. Today was the funeral. People dressed well, smiled gently, cried little. But he looked exactly like the last time I saw him. Arms crossed, face calm, no need for words. He paused. They said he once saved a life, that he taught for 40 years, but no one said he used to wash milk bottles in kindergarten even when no one asked. No one said he waited 45 minutes just to return a pen I lent him the day before. Andre stopped, closed his eyes, then added one more line. Maybe those things were too small for anyone to remember. But I lived on them. 2 days later, Mr. Ellis's daughter, her name was Claire, returned to the funeral home. She asked the receptionist, "The boy from the other day, Andre, did he leave anything?" The woman nodded and pulled out a thin notebook. "He left this before leaving," said, "for the grown-ups, in case they get bored." I didn't dare open it. Claire took the notebook, her palm slightly trembling. At home, she opened it to the first page. "If you're holding this, you probably knew Mr. Ellis, and if you didn't know him well, maybe this will help a little." Claire read the first 5 pages straight. She didn't stop. Each page was a note, sometimes just one line, sometimes a long thought, sometimes things that felt so ordinary could be missed. He once called me accidentally patient. Every time I cried, he'd place a tissue under the pencil case, then pretend, who dropped this? He taught math by saying, 1 + 1 doesn't always make 2, if the second person doesn't want to stay. Claire laughed, then went silent. She had never heard her father say any of this. She had never seen him this gentle. Not because he wasn't gentle, but because he had saved it, for those who needed it more than his daughter. It wasn't jealousy. It was a quiet tap on a memory door she'd never opened. Claire returned to the elementary school where her father had once taught. She asked to speak with the principal, a middle-aged man named Blake, once a student of Mr. Ellis himself. "We're very sorry for your father's passing," Mr. Blake said. "How can I help you?" "I need to find the file of a former student, Andre. He was in my father's class. I think it was Class 3B. Blake typed, scrolled, paused after a long while. "The file's here, but it's very sparse." Claire leaned over. There were only a few lines. Name, Andre M., Class 3B, academic year, 2017 to 2018. Status, dropped out mid-year, reason unknown. Note, mother never attended meetings. Phone number unreachable. We don't know where he lived after that. No permanent address. Your father once requested a free meal plan for him, I think. Claire read every line as if holding the last evidence of a child no one ever bothered to look for. "May I print this?" "Please do." That night, Claire placed the file next to the suitcase Andre had left behind. She opened the suitcase, though it was empty, and gently added the printed school file and the old notebook inside. She said to herself, "If the boy ever comes back, at least there'll be something here for him to claim." Andre didn't return to the shelter that night. He had learned how to temporarily sleep in many places: the last bus stop on Hillside Avenue, the laundry room of a rundown building, and even behind the abandoned library, a corner no one walked past after 8 p.m. That night he chose the bus stop. It was cold but quiet, and like every night as sounds faded away like footsteps vanishing behind tree arches, Andre opened his notebook and thought about Mr. Ellis. Not the way people talked about him in eulogies, that he was a good teacher, loved his students, devoted his life to the job. Andre only remembered the things no one saw. Like that rainy day, Andre had no raincoat. Mr. Ellis didn't ask questions, didn't pity him, just quietly handed over an empty plastic bag and said, "If you can't cover your head, at least keep your notebooks dry." Andre had smiled, not because it warmed his heart, but because it made him feel like he was someone worth protecting. Or that afternoon in late March when Andre spilled red ink all over his test paper. Mr. Ellis grabbed a blank sheet, rewrote every single question, then worked beside him, not to punish, not to explain. Just wrote and said, "I need to redo some things in my life, too. You're helping me not feel stupid for starting over." Andre had once thought Mr. Ellis was only kind to him, until he saw the teacher slip a juice box into a shy girl's backpack from the next class. No one else noticed. No one else knew. Except Andre, because he always sat in the back, unnoticed. And in doing so, he saw everything others missed. Maybe that's why Mr. Ellis saw him too. No one told Andre when Mr. Ellis stopped teaching. There were no calls, no mentions. One day he showed up, and the desk was empty. There was a replacement, but no lunchbox in the drawer, no gloves under the desk, no notes written in black ink. "Wishing you a breathable day, self-learner." Weeks later, Andre dropped out. Not out of anger, just because there was no longer a reason to come. His mother never came back. The fridge stayed empty, and no matter how long he clenched his fists, his palms never felt warm again. Claire sat in her father's old kitchen. On the table was the suitcase. Inside it, a notebook, a student file, and a note she had just added that morning. "You may no longer sit in the student chair, but if one day you come back, everything he left behind will still be here." She placed a photo inside, a picture of Mr. Ellis and herself when she was little, from a rare picnic where he didn't bring a single book. She hoped Andre had never seen him smile like that, but more than that, she hoped he had made him smile in another way. Claire called Principal Blake. "I'd like to sponsor a reading corner at the school, named after my father, but only if you reopen the records of all students who dropped out in the past 10 years. Are you looking for someone? Number, I just want to make sure. No one else like Andre ever disappears again." Claire didn't return to the school grounds for 3 days after placing the suitcase there. She didn't want the act to feel like surveillance. If the boy came back, it had to be because he wanted to, not because he felt watched. But every morning, as she woke up, she pictured that wooden bench under the oak tree. Each time she passed a bookstore, she wondered, would Andre like Hemingway? Or just thin books, no chapters, no plot, just pieces of ordinary life. On Wednesday afternoon, she called Principal Blake. "Could you check the school's security cameras for me?" "What are you trying to confirm?" "Nothing. I just want to know if someone ever came back for the suitcase." He called back later. "Yes, the boy came back on Sunday afternoon, sat there for quite a while. Didn't take anything. Just wrote something in the notebook and left." Claire felt her chest tighten slightly. Not because of emotion, but because of responsibility. For the first time in years of living by logic and plans and straight lines, Claire felt she needed to do something. That hadn't been on any agenda. That evening, she returned to the school. The suitcase was still there, slightly pulled to the right. Not by much, just half a step, but enough to tell her someone had sat near it, not just stand and stare. She opened the suitcase. The notebook had a new page. The handwriting was still familiar, simple, unpolished, but firmer, stronger. If this suitcase is how he left something for me, then whoever put it here must be like him. I'm not ready to say thank you, because I don't know if I deserve anything, but I saw it. There was no name, no date, no address. But Claire understood. This time, Andre wanted to be seen. She left a line in return, using the soft, round handwriting her father once taught her. "If you're not ready to receive anything, perhaps you could begin by offering just a piece of your own story. The reader will not judge, they only want to be trusted." The next evening, Claire sat in the community library, the one she used to visit every Thursday as a child. Table 4, next to the window. She opened her laptop to work, then set it aside. Instead, she opened the suitcase notebook. The newest entry was short, heavily crossed out. Then written again. My name is Andre M. When I was 6, my mother left me at a gas station on the way to Florida. A ticket lady called the police, but I ran before they got there. Because if my mother came back and didn't see me, maybe she'd remember that she once had a son. She didn't come back. Claire closed the notebook. Not out of pain, but because there was nothing left to add to understand. The following day, she placed a brown envelope inside the suitcase. Inside it, a library card, registered under the name Andre M. No ID is required, no address, just a note. No one needs to know who you are for you to borrow a book. But if you ever want someone to remember that you once read it, this library is always open. Andre returned at noon that day. For the first time, he brought something to put into the suitcase. A small folded piece of paper. On it, one line. Tomorrow, I'll come to the library. I don't know how to ask to borrow a book. But if someone's there, I'll learn. Andre didn't return to the library the next day, nor the day after that. He needed time. Not to decide whether to come back, but to learn how to believe that he was allowed to. He had walked through many places before. Behind restaurants, behind supermarkets, laundry rooms and basement apartments. They were all the same. No one told him to leave, but nothing gave him a reason to stay. Andre was used to it. He had learned that not being kicked out didn't mean being welcomed. But that day, as he lingered outside the library, with the card still in his pocket, he noticed something on the bulletin board. If you're someone who never knew you had the right to borrow anything, know this: you don't need permission. You just need a reason. No name, no initials. But Andre knew, and he stepped inside. Claire wasn't on duty that day, but she had told the librarian covering her shift, if a boy comes in with a card that has no address, don't ask anything. Just show him a seat with good light. Andre chose the table near the window, far left. He read for 2 hours, no rush, no fidgeting, no glancing around. At the end, he left a slip of paper tucked in the book. I didn't learn anything new today, but I didn't feel stupid. Claire found the note during her shift the next day. She didn't need more than that to know. He had chosen to stay. 3 weeks later, Claire did something she had never imagined she would do. She went to the local administrative office, filed a request for temporary guardianship review. Not to adopt Andre, not to become a stepmother, but simply to be officially allowed to invite him to dinner. The clerk looked at her like she had just offered to adopt a baby tiger. How long have you known this boy? Not long, but long enough to know that if I don't do something, no one else will. Are you related? No. Do you have any paperwork to prove your connection? Claire shook her head. Just the memories of a man who just passed away, and a child who is the only witness to the parts of him everyone else forgot. The clerk didn't argue, just sighed. We'll need to verify a few things, but if the boy agrees, we can offer a type of humanitarian foster placement. That afternoon, Claire walked to the library. Not to borrow a book, not to teach Andre anything. Just to ask one simple question. If one day you needed a warm kitchen to read beside a glass of milk, would you like to know that there's a place where you're allowed to knock? Andre didn't answer right away. He looked out the window. Sunlight spilled gently onto the wooden table. Then he nodded, slow, but certain. Their first dinner together was on a Saturday. Claire cooked pasta, the kind she used to make whenever her father felt low. Andre didn't eat much, but he didn't leave leftovers either. After the meal, he quietly washed the dishes. Claire didn't say anything, didn't praise, just handed him a towel. As he got ready to leave, she asked, "Would you like to leave your suitcase here?" Andre looked at her. Not surprised, not emotional, just the look of someone who had never been asked about their luggage before. "The suitcase is empty. I know, but maybe, this time, it's meant to be empty here." He placed the suitcase on the bookshelf. No goodbye, no thank you. But for the first time, he left without carrying anything. Claire didn't rush. Every week, she invited Andre for just one meal. No lectures, no questions, no prying. She only said small, practical things. Salt's in the second drawer. This window squeaks, just pull it hard. If you want to write in the books, use a pencil. No one will mind. 3 weeks later, Andre asked, "Can I leave a few notebooks here?" "Just so I don't have to carry them every time." Claire nodded. No explanation is needed. Because to her, that's how someone begins to live in a place. Not by birth certificate, but by leaving a few notebooks behind. That night, when Claire closed the last notebook in the old suitcase, she wrote one line inside. "If Dad is watching from somewhere, then I believe he knows. This time, I didn't open my home to just anyone. I opened it for the only child who ever made him come home with the eyes of an 8-year-old. The suitcase closed. Light, but no longer empty. Andre wasn't used to being waited for, so when Claire texted, "If it gets too cold tonight, stay over. There's an extra blanket." He didn't reply. He read the message, put the phone back in his pocket, and sat motionless at the old bus stop, the one that had once been his house, his classroom, his rain shelter, his waiting room where no one ever came. Rain began to fall at 6:40 p.m. He didn't run, not because he didn't mind getting wet, but because he didn't know what to do when someone wanted him inside. People had smiled at him before, waved at him before, but when he stepped closer, they shut the door, or stepped back, or changed their eyes. Enough times like that, and Andre had learned not to step forward anymore. Claire stood by the window, kitchen light casting a soft gold onto the ceiling. A small pot of seafood soup simmered on the stove. 2 bowls, 2 pairs of chopsticks. A clean napkin, folded in half, placed to the left. Exactly how her father used to do it. 7:12 p.m. No one knocked. She didn't call, didn't text. She just placed a thick coat on the back of the sofa and reheated the soup one more time. Andre returned at 8 p.m. Wet. Hair tangled, silent. He entered through the back kitchen door. No noise, no announcement. Claire didn't ask where he had been. Didn't say, "Why didn't you reply?" She simply ladled the soup again, placed it in front of him, and said, "If there's ever a night you want to eat but not talk, just tap the napkin twice. That's the quiet signal in this house." Andre looked at her. He didn't understand why this adult had made space for him to not have to speak, but he nodded and ate. The next morning, Claire woke early, brewed coffee, and tidied up Andre's old suitcase. Inside, she found a new notebook. The first line, written darker than usual. "If I survived my past, then the thing I fear most now isn't hunger, it's being fed. Because if I get used to being cared for, and it disappears, I'm not sure I'll survive again." She placed her hand over the line, didn't wipe away tears. She just whispered, "You have every right to be afraid, but you don't have to hide." A week later, Andre went back to school. Not his old one, not where Claire had studied. It was an evening class for students who'd fallen through the cracks of the regular system. Claire called it a place for people who don't quite fit, to rewrite their schedules. Andre came with a cloth backpack Claire had sewn by hand. He didn't sit at the front, But he didn't hide in the back either. Middle row. Just close enough to see the board, and close enough to pass someone a pencil if they needed one. During the break, he didn't go sit alone. He wrote in his notebook, "Today, I helped someone pick up a ruler. They said thank you, not because I picked it up, but because I didn't laugh. Maybe, for the first time, I helped someone without feeling small." Claire read that line later that evening while folding laundry. She smiled. Just a little. Didn't call Andre over, didn't praise him. She just slipped a note into his lunch for the next day. When you can help others without feeling beneath them, that's when you've started to stand. That Saturday evening, Andre asked, "If one day I go far away, do I have to return everything here?" Claire answered without hesitation, "No, because you're not borrowing. You're leaving footprints, and footprints aren't something anyone can take back." Andre didn't say anything. But when Claire turned away, he quietly wrote a new line in the last page of his notebook. "For the first time in my life, I want to learn how to stay. Because for the first time, someone told me I don't have to be worthy just to exist." On Friday afternoon, Andre came home earlier than usual. In his hand was a scholarship letter, one of those for special students in recovery classes. He didn't understand all the words, but one bolded sentence was clear to anyone. Nominee for academic transition support. Claire wasn't home yet. On the table was an envelope she had left. "Please buy 1 bottle of milk and 2 lemons. Money's in the kitchen drawer." In the corner, she'd scribbled, "P.S. There will be banana bread tonight." Andre slipped the scholarship letter into his notebook. He planned to show Claire when she got back, not to be praised, but simply to share something worth noticing. He didn't need to hear he was smart. He just needed someone to care when he had something to say. Claire came home at 6, drizzle in the air. She walked into the kitchen, paper bag in hand. Inside were 1 bottle of milk and 2 lemons. Andre froze. "I was going to get those." Claire smiled as she set the bag on the table. "I passed the store on my way home, figured I'd grab them." Just a simple sentence. But to Andre, it hit like a closing door in his head. He had already planned to go, had taken the wallet, had felt needed. And now, though no one meant harm, he was suddenly the second option. Andre didn't eat dinner that night. He said he had a stomachache. But the truth was, he didn't know what face to bring to the table. Claire left the banana bread on the counter with a small note. "It's in the fridge. Eat it when your belly feels better." She didn't know what was wrong. Just that the boy who had slowly opened his heart had taken a step back again. Late that night, while Claire slept, Andre quietly pulled his old suitcase out from under the cabinet. He placed inside it 3 notebooks, a worn-down pencil, and his old library card. Then he wrote one last line. "Maybe I'll leave first, so I won't be left behind again." The next morning, Claire came downstairs and found the suitcase in the center of the dining table. She opened it. No clothes, no money, no belongings, only the things that had once connected him to her, now neatly laid out, as if they had never existed. The final line felt like a punch to her chest. "Maybe I'll leave first, so I won't be left behind again." She understood immediately. No anger, no sadness. Just the kind of feeling you get when you fold a piece of paper too many times, and it tears. Not because it's weak, but because it's been enduring for too long. Claire didn't chase after Andre. She left the suitcase where it was, untouched, unadjusted, so that if he ever came back, he'd know. Someone didn't try to change his decision. They simply waited for it to open again. Andre slept in the back of the old bus that night. It was cold. but not unbearable, too familiar, which made it feel safe, in the most dangerous way. He didn't know why he'd reacted the way he did. She only bought milk and lemons. But that was more than enough to drag up a memory he'd buried long ago. His mother once said, "Wait here, I'll get some milk." She never came back. And Andre realized all good things seem to start with milk and lemons, and end with disappearance. 3 days passed. Claire didn't call, didn't text. She simply left the suitcase on the table. Each morning she dusted it, changed the cloth beneath it. On the 4th day, Andre came back. Not because he missed her, but because he couldn't bear to always be the one who disappeared first. He entered through the back. The suitcase was still there, unmoved. Claire was peeling apples, didn't turn around. She only said, softly, "There's still banana bread in the fridge, still untouched. But you don't have to eat it to be forgiven. Just eat it if you want to." Andre didn't reply. He sat down. For the first time, sat without needing comfort. After a while, he whispered, "I didn't leave because I was angry. I left because if you didn't need me to do anything anymore, I didn't know what reason I had to stay." Claire put the knife down, turned. No tears, no crouching to meet his eyes. She simply placed her hand on the suitcase and said, "You used to think a suitcase had to be full to be worth carrying, but some people leave their suitcase empty to make space for what hasn't arrived yet. Here, no one expects you to earn your right to stay. But if you need a reason, the reason is, you came back." Andre looked at her, then at the suitcase, then opened it. He placed one thing inside, the pencil Claire once left beside her water glass. "I don't need to write anything tonight," he said, "but I know I'll want to again." Claire nodded and returned to the kitchen. She began baking banana bread again. Not because the boy stayed, but because in this house, bread would always be baked again for the one who chose to return. The official letter arrived on a Tuesday morning. Claire opened the mailbox, flipped past the usual bills, and saw a thin envelope printed with the name of the scholarship program Andre had mentioned. She said nothing, just placed it neatly on the table, then stuck a small note on the corner. "You might want to open this when no one's watching, or maybe when someone is. Either way, I'll let you decide." Andre saw the letter at noon. He sat in front of it for nearly 15 minutes before finally tearing the envelope open. Inside was a crisp white sheet, printed in bold black. "Congratulations, Andre M. You've been selected for the Special Transition Program for at-risk youth at Claymore Boarding School. All tuition, room and board, and living expenses will be fully covered. Classes begin next month. Students are encouraged to arrive 1 week early to adjust." Andre didn't read it twice. He folded it carefully, set it on the table, then washed his hands, as if nothing had happened. That night, Claire didn't ask, didn't bring it up. She simply poured 2 glasses of water, handed him a new notebook, and said, "If what you wrote in the old one doesn't feel big enough anymore, then this is where you can write something bigger." Andre nodded. But he didn't write a single word all evening. 3 mornings later, over breakfast, he asked, "Is Claymore far?" Claire looked at him, smiling gently. "Far, but not too far to come back from." He was quiet, then said, "If I go, will you stop needing me?" Claire set her glass of milk down. She didn't rush to comfort him. Didn't say, "Why would you think that?" She just answered, as if she had known he'd ask all along. "If you go, it means you're strong enough to go, and I won't stand behind you calling your name. I'll stand in front, holding the door open, waiting for you to return." Andre lowered his head. For the first time, his tears fell without a cry, without a gasp, just a quiet relief. When it came time to pack, Claire didn't help. She simply placed a new suitcase beside the bed. The old one still sat at the corner of the desk, but both of them knew he didn't need it anymore. Andre packed 3 notebooks, a few pencils, a handkerchief embroidered with the letter A, something Claire had made in secret, and a small photo. Mr. Ellis sitting under sunlight, reading a book, light glinting off his glasses. Claire added a small note into the side pocket. No one needs to remember every word you wrote. But maybe someone will need to see the way you looked at the world. Andre didn't ask who someone was. He just smiled and zipped the suitcase shut. On the morning of his departure, Claire didn't walk him to the bus. She let Andre go on his own, because this was a journey where he wasn't being left behind. But when the bus turned the corner, Andre looked out the window and saw Claire standing in the distance, not waving, not calling out, just standing there, holding a handkerchief, not to wipe her tears, just holding it. That evening, Claire's house was quiet. Only one seat at the table. The couch no longer smelled like an old jacket, and the empty suitcase sat quietly in its usual place, like a silent replica of an unfinished promise. She opened the new notebook Andre had left on the table. The first line read, "I won't promise to be the best student in class, but I do promise to be the first one to raise my hand if anyone ever asks, has anyone here ever thought they didn't deserve to learn?" Claire closed the notebook, placed her hand on top, and smiled. "Good. This time, you left without losing anything. Because finally, you've left yourself somewhere that can hold you." Andre returned to the city on a late autumn day. No one knew. No one was waiting. He brought no suitcase, no backpack, just a small canvas bag and something heavier than any luggage he'd ever carried before. The quiet, knowing that once he had been waiting for. He didn't call Claire, didn't send a message. He simply walked through the old streets, past the bakery, past the library, past the bus stop that had once been his living room for an entire winter. Claire's house looked the same. Tidy balcony, the kitchen window is slightly open, as always, and the empty suitcase was still there, resting on the shelf by the fireplace. He knocked once, no rush. Claire opened the door within seconds. No surprise, no exclamation, no, "You're back?" She just looked at him for a long moment and said, as if he'd only gone out for 5 minutes to get something from the store, "There's pumpkin soup on the stove. If you're hungry, heat it. If not, just sit down. It's warm." Andre stepped in. Didn't take off his shoes, didn't need an invitation. He sat in the old chair and set the canvas bag on the table. "I won't be staying the night," he said. Claire didn't ask why. She just nodded. "I know." Andre opened the bag and took out a small object, wrapped in craft paper and tied with string. He unwrapped it. Inside was a thick, leather-bound notebook, handmade. "I made this in my second-year art class. Real leather." Hand-stitched Claire held the notebook. On the back cover, pressed in small lettering, "Everyone leaves something behind, even if they don't mean to." On the first page, Andre had written, "If you once kept my empty suitcase, then I want to leave you this notebook, to slowly fill with the things I didn't know how to name back then. I'm no longer the kid who had to write just to be seen, but I still want to write, because someone once read and didn't walk away." Claire didn't respond right away. She set the notebook gently on the table, then opened a drawer under the shelf. She took out something else, the old library card, faded yellow, corners curling slightly. "I kept this just in case you ever needed it again." Andre gave a small smile. "I do. The library's still there. Table 4 still gets the best light, but this time you don't need a borrowing code to sit there. Just sit." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Andre stood up. I've got to head back to school tomorrow morning. The first session of the life skills class. I'm teaching. Just a trial. Claire laughed softly. You? A teacher? Andre shrugged. Not fully certified yet, but I've got a few stories worth sharing. He walked to the door, stopped at the threshold. One more thing, I won't need a suitcase anymore, don't need it. But if someone else ever wanders in like I once did, will you keep that place for them? Claire nodded. The suitcase will always be here, not to hold things, but to remind someone being empty isn't something to be ashamed of. It's a reason to be filled. The next morning, Claire cleaned the kitchen. On the table, the new notebook rested beside the old suitcase. She opened it. On the second page, Andre had written, I used to wonder if anyone would remember me. Now I know. Someone once looked at me, not because I needed help, but because I helped them feel seen. She closed the notebook, placed it gently on top of the suitcase, and returned to baking banana bread. Because somewhere in the world, there is always a child who believes they're invisible, and a suitcase, still empty, waiting to be seen. The empty suitcase isn't a symbol of lack. It is the humble space left open, for trust, for footsteps, for someone who never had a place to stand, to write, or simply to rest and breathe.